I am very, very aware of the dangers of certain imagery of children online. Anything that could lure unsavory people, I don't want to film that and put that online. Hello everyone. First things first, I am so tired right now, so I do apologize if I stutter or slip over my words or just appear to be somewhere else, because I've not slept really well the last 3 nights, actually 4 nights. I'll get to the reason in a minute, but anyway, welcome to the final pregnancy Q&A. I think for the rest of the pregnancy. I asked on Instagram if anybody had any questions for me regarding PPROM, hospitalization, pregnancy after loss, high-risk pregnancy, and y'all came through. Got the questions right here, and I am going to answer them. Similar to my last Q&A, I'm sort of going to categorize these into different categories just to simplify it. So without further ado, here's some questions about PPROM. The first question that I got about PPROM was, did your bag of water reseal? The answer to that is unfortunately no. There were a couple times that we thought it had, just because there had been a few days where I didn't experience any leaking, or I didn't think that I experienced any leaking, but it was inevitably followed up with some minor gushes or some intermittent leaking. So, and they said that's pretty normal. The next question is, how is amniotic fluid measured and what is a normal amount of fluid? So I think a normal amount of fluid is anywhere from like 8 centimeters to 20 centimeters. And how they measure it is when they're on the ultrasound, they take the probe on your belly and they find the largest pockets of fluid. They take an image and then they measure from like top to bottom in the uterus. And it's definitely kind of just an average or an estimate, really, but they measure it in, I want to say 4 places, 4 different pockets, like just the deepest pockets that they can find, and then they add those 4 pockets up, and that is your amniotic fluid index. The last PPROM question I got was, how do you avoid infection after your water breaks? So first and foremost, I think one of the most important things to do is to get antibiotic treatment at the hospital or as outpatient, depending on your gestation. I think before 20 weeks, they won't admit you, so you can do a course of antibiotics at home. But after 20 weeks, I think they would admit you, and then they would give the intravenous antibiotics. Other than that, there's sort of like a protocol of making sure you change your underwear at least once, twice a day, changing any pads or panty liners as often as possible. You want to keep really good hygiene down there. Sometimes the hospital will give you a peri bottle to wash with, but you don't want to overwash, if that makes sense. You don't want to disrupt the pH balance that your body's accustomed to, so don't like overwash. Complete pelvic rest, so nothing goes inside. You can even decline cervical checks, like digital cervical checks, so you could opt for ultrasound or a sterile speculum exam without introducing any fingers. That's what I would recommend. Just, you don't want anything going inside. That being said, you could do everything perfectly, exactly as you should, and you could still get an infection. So if that happens, it's not your fault. You know, sometimes it just happens. Some people are more susceptible than others. So the next topic is mental health. And the first question I got was, How do you handle pregnancy after loss so well? I am a nervous wreck. You know, I don't know that I'm handling it necessarily well. I think I tend to be very stoic. I know that when I have told my team that I'm experiencing an anxiety attack, they have no idea. They'll tell me like, wow, I had no, like, you really don't show it. And it, like, when I come out and tell them, hey, I'm having an anxiety attack, it literally sounds like that. It's the most calm thing. I'm like, hey, I'm having a lot of anxiety right now and I think I need to be put on the monitor. It, like, that's, I don't know, I'm just really stoic. I don't do the, you know, I don't get like super worked up. So I think I have the appearance of looking like I got my shit together, but you know, there's a lot of times when I really don't. I don't know if I necessarily have like the greatest advice because I'm not handling it super well, you know? I mean, I'm handling it the best I can. I breathe when I need to, and I talk to a social worker when I need to. Like, I talked to a social worker today for a while because I just had a lot to get off my chest, and it was helpful. So I think, you know, definitely communicating with people that you care for, and letting it out rather than bottling it up, I think is really important. That way you're not just like, you know, and then you explode or something. Next question is advice on how to not cry every day after stillbirth. Ooh, it's a hard one. My advice would be to let yourself feel what you have to feel and cry if you have to cry. And I'm so sorry this is something that you're experiencing. It is literal hell on earth to lose a child, and I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. And it is the hardest thing I have ever done in my entire life. It's the hardest thing I continue to do, and there's no mistaking that it's yeah, it takes a toll. And I don't have advice to, like, I wouldn't say stop crying, you know. I would say feel what you're gonna feel, cry if you have to, you know. Just know that grief, it eventually, like, it doesn't get less painful. It's like a tidal wave that, you know, crashes into you. And though the strength of that wave doesn't get smaller, we get stronger at swimming, if that makes sense. So eventually we learn to swim with the waves. I'm probably not doing like a good job of explaining this because I'm so tired, but yeah, we just get stronger, and it still hurts for me even a year later, not quite as often, but I still have moments where the pain cuts really deep, and I imagine it'll be that way for the rest of my life. But in the earlier days, the earlier months, you gotta feel what you're gonna feel, you know? I would never recommend shoving something down or bottling something up, but that's just me. Whew. Next mental health question is, how are you mentally preparing for birth? So I'm actually quite nervous to go through birth, just because I have this fear that something's gonna go wrong and he's gonna come out not breathing or something, you know, just, you know, worst case scenario loves to run wild in an anxious brain, right? So I have to tell myself affirmations when I have those moments, you know, different pregnancy, different outcome. You know, I'm in one of the best hospitals in California. If something goes awry, like, they're gonna fix it, you know what I mean? So mentally preparing for it, just knowing that I have a fantastic team. This is a wonderful hospital. It's the safest place for us, and that this is a different pregnancy and a different outcome. So the next topic is induction/delivery. First question is, would you ever consider a home water birth for future babies? And the answer to that, I already know, is absolutely not. And not because I think it's wrong or anything. It's actually what I really wanted while I was pregnant with Kaia. I wanted to do like a home water birth, like unmedicated, all of that stuff. But after losing a child, after having a very, very complicated second pregnancy, where I have to be hospitalized and, you know, I'm high risk, I want to be right next to the OR. Should anything happen, I want to be right there, cut my baby out, like just whatever is going to keep my baby alive, do it. And there's too many unknowns with being home for me. I think, yeah, my mindset has just changed completely, because I was very much like I don't want an epidural, I don't want this, I don't want that, I want to go into labor naturally, etc., before. But having an infant death and super complicated pregnancy, yeah, I just don't think I'm the candidate for that. You know what I mean? Next question is, will you be getting an epidural? And the answer to that is yes. I was actually very afraid to get an epidural last time, and I refused it until I was about 8 centimeters and in so much pain that I was just like, I was shaking like this. I was in transition essentially when they finally put it in, and I got some relief, and I did not have any, you know, any complications from that experience. It was a very good anesthesiologist, is that what they're called? Really good, knew what he was doing. So I had a lot more faith in medicine after that experience. It was such a good experience. So I will be getting an epidural this time. And not just for pain relief, but also, I'm not sure, do you get the epidural if you have to have an emergency C-section? Because I don't want anything to stand between my child like coming out. If there was an emergency, you know, I'd want there to already be a way for them to put the proper medication in me so they could cut me open and take him out. So I wouldn't want even a second longer of them having to try to figure out to do like a spinal or whatever. So yeah, I do want that placed, not like super early, but early enough that if something goes wrong, that it's there and ready to be utilized. Something I would want to consider though, and I'm going to talk to the team about it, is something called a walking epidural. I don't know what exactly that is, but I'm assuming you can walk with it. I might prefer that. So we'll see. Next question is, why won't they just do a C-section? And the answer to that is that it's actually safer to do a vaginal delivery. It's safer for me, it's safer for, you know, my recovery and everything. It's safer for my future pregnancies because I do make such large babies. Doing a C-section on me, I think because I make macrosomic babies, just my genetics, that I would be more at risk for a uterine rupture, which could kill me. So it's a lot safer for me to have a vaginal delivery. Next question is, will you be vlogging the birth? And I think, yes, I'm definitely going to film as much of the birth as I want, but there's definitely going to be some things that are just going to be for me and Kameron that are not going to be put on the internet, obviously. Yeah, so I mean, there's definitely gonna be a vlog of the birth as long as all goes well. If there's an emergency, obviously we're not gonna be filming, you know, just because that'd be weird. What is your ideal birth experience? One where the baby lives. I know it sounds really weird. I don't care about any other thing other than him coming out screaming and crying. That's the only thing that I care about when it comes to, you know, an ideal situation. I just want my son to live and to be healthy. Next question is, will they let you go past 34 weeks? They did want to do 34 like on the dot, which would be Sunday, so like this weekend. And mostly because my OB was going out of town. But, you know, we did discuss you know, 34, 35, 36 weeks, and we did come to a decision. So I guess the short answer is yes, we are going beyond 34 weeks. The next question is kind of more of a statement, and it's one that I received many times, and some of them were partially rude, I want to say, but even if it was kind of hurtful, I do want to talk about this. So the question is, you need to just listen to your doctors and do 34 weeks. It's selfish of you to want to go longer. And then other variations of that same statement were, you need to stop fighting with your doctors and just do what they say. They know better than you, etc., etc. There was actually another variation of that where people were saying, like, you need to fight them. You need to stand up for yourself and do what you believe in and everything. And here's the thing. I'm not fighting with them at all. I have a phenomenal team. I am so thrilled that these professionals and these doctors are on my team, and these nurses and these amazing, like, they're just, it's been such a good experience. And we're a team, and we're working together, and we're consulting with each other, and we're going over risk-benefit ratios and everything for all the different gestations. So I don't know if maybe I worded it in the past or something where it sounded like I was fighting with them, but I didn't mean it like that. You know what I mean? I just yeah. I like to be consulted with decisions. So I meet with them every morning and every night, and we discuss, you know, the plan for the day and the plan for the future and everything. And when it came to choosing an induction date or week, of course they want to do, you know, 34. One, my OB was going out of town for a week. But we discussed the different benefits of doing it at 34 weeks versus the risks. Developmental benefits for my son for 35 weeks versus the risks, and then, you know, benefits at 36 weeks versus the risks. So though they would love to do 34, they are presenting these 3 different gestational ages for me with the risks and benefits and giving me an option. So there's no fight with them, you know. I kind of feel like they just wanted me to pick a date, like, so that there's something on the books, something for them to look forward to. Because when I told them, you know what, I want him to be born on this date, they were more than ecstatic about that. They're like, oh, wonderful. You know, there was no trying to convince me otherwise. They were like, great, so we'll get the induction started the night before. And I'm like, okay, sounds good. And that's what we have on the books. And yes, it is beyond 34 weeks, which was their initial recommendation. And they couldn't be more thrilled. They were like, just really happy that I had a day in mind. You know what I mean? So I don't think it was necessarily like, this is the safest option. It was kind of like, can you give us a date so we're not sitting here with it up in the air and not knowing when to do this? You know what I mean? So I think it was like a scheduling thing, really. And, you know, I probably shouldn't even address this because it's just rude to say that I'm selfish for wanting to go longer. That's insane. I feel that if I were truly acting for my own comfort and my own benefit, I wouldn't even be in the hospital. I would have left against medical advice to be in the comfort of my own home, doing whatever I want. I wouldn't endure a longer period of pregnancy kind of cooped up in a hospital with anxiety and just enduring the mental health aspect of being afraid that my son's gonna die while I'm sleeping, because that's when my daughter passed away, was while I was asleep, and waking up 3-4 times a night waiting for him to move. If I was, you know, selfish, I'd be like, take him out now. Take him out now, instead of wanting to reach a certain developmental stage for my son in utero. Yeah, I think everything that I have done thus far has been for my son's benefit, and it goes completely against my own comfort. And I mean, it sounds nice to be in the hospital, hooked up to machines and getting monitoring, you know, twice a day and whenever I need it. That is nice. But it's hard too. I'm on day 50 in the hospital today. My nurse came in, she's like, happy day 50 in the hospital. And I was like, and it's really starting to take a toll. Like, I gotta be honest, it's starting to get to me. But I'm doing everything I can to just ride the wave, and we're in the final countdown. Okay, moving on from that whole thing. The last set of questions is about motherhood. And the first question I got was, what are your thoughts on breastfeeding versus formula feeding? I would love to breastfeed. I really hope that I have a good supply. I think fed is best when it comes to, you know, that whole argument. I don't even know why people have that argument. If I had to, I would formula feed my baby. I was formula fed as a baby, and I turned out just fine. That being said, I do want to breastfeed, but for, you know, it's really up to each individual person, whether they can, whether they want to. Some people, I know for me, I do eventually need to get back on my meds, and that's not something I want to be feeding my child, is my medication. I've been off my medication since I found out I was pregnant with Kaia. Excuse me. And it's hard. It's hard to function without ADHD medication. That's my long ass roundabout way of saying that if somebody can't, because of, you know, mental health reasons, or they just lack a supply, I would never look down on them, even though I want to breastfeed. Never ever look down on somebody for formula feeding. Next question is, will you be a stay-at-home mom? And I guess kind of. Like, I definitely don't see myself going out and getting a job and working for somebody. You know what I mean? I have my Etsy shop. I do this. Kameron makes a really, really decent living, so it's not like I need to go get a job. You know what I mean? Plus, it's like, I'd probably be spending money on childcare like whatever I make on my job would just go to childcare. You know what I mean? So I would be a stay-at-home mom, but I would also be working at home, if that makes sense. The last question is, how will you involve Kieran in vlogs? You should research about child exploitation on YouTube. So that is actually a fantastic question. One of my favorites. So I have been very aware of vloggers exploiting their children, making money off of them and putting them in compromising situations on film, which is out there forever. This is something that I've thought about even over a decade ago, just seeing certain photos that people would put of their children on public platforms that just made me feel uneasy. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that as a child I was it's gonna get a little dark. There's no easy way to say this. I was taken advantage of by an adult as a child. So I am very, very aware of the dangers of certain imagery of children online. So that's something I've thought very long and hard about. There's certain imagery that even on vloggers that I really enjoy watching, who don't do all of the outrageous stuff that you see that is built for, you know, clickbait and built for like creating drama and everything to increase revenue and everything. Vloggers that I find to be genuine, good people, even they're, you know, doing things that I wouldn't necessarily do with my children, filming certain aspects of their lives that I would never film, you know. I wouldn't say that they're doing it knowingly, being like, ah, some pervert's gonna enjoy this, you know what I mean? But still, it's definitely, all I can do is to not put that kind of content out there, you know what I mean? I have a list of types of content that I will never film, never ever put out there. I will never breastfeed on camera. I will never show my child in states of undress on camera. I will never show my child in a diaper on camera. I will never film him bathing. Anything that could lure unsavory people, I don't want to film that and put that online. I'm not going to film tantrums, you know, anything that could be embarrassing, you know, my child's medical information, that's going to be private. And then also the channel's pretty much about me, you know, well, it was supposed to be about me and Kameron, but it's kind of like my journey through grief and becoming a mother and then eventually motherhood and everything. It's not going to become the Kieran show, you know what I mean? That being said, I will have my son participate in the channel because it is, you know, that's the nature of vlogs. We are actually going to open a bank account for him. I initially wanted to open a Coogan account for him, but you can't open a Coogan account unless you have a legitimate job offer from, like, say, a print company or a production company, like for movies or commercials, things like that. So you can't actually get a Coogan account for that, which is an entertainment account for children that protects their assets. So the next best thing is the bank that we're at, they do allow you to open a bank account for an infant. There's some banks that I think it's like six years old and up, but the one that we're at in particular, you can't open it for an infant. You just have to have like their birth certificate or something. Essentially, if there's any vlog that my son is in, I would pay him a wage for being in it, because it's essentially like he's talent, you know, appearing on camera. He should be paid for that. And then when you're looking at your analytics on YouTube Studio, you can see, like, you can choose like a period of 28 days, for instance, and you can see how much revenue you made on that video in that certain time period. Sorry, I'm so out of breath. He's like right up here in my ribs. Can you see that? So you can see like how much revenue your video made in a certain time period, and I do plan to give him a percentage of any video that he's in. It's not going to be like a huge, like, he gets 20%, because that's a lot. And I do believe you can pay your child up to $12,000 a year without them being taxed for it. I've looked into this a lot. But yeah, I would pay him a wage for participating in a video, you know, however much that would be. I obviously wouldn't be sitting there doing some crazy hours, because it doesn't take much to film a vlog. And then a percentage of whatever that vlog makes. So I'm gonna pay him. I do take child exploitation and child labor very seriously, and I don't know, I'm probably not the first person on YouTube to consider doing this, or who is going to do this at all. Like, I'm sure there's other vloggers that pay their children, you know what I mean? They just probably don't talk about it, but yeah, there are a lot of people that do exploit their children and make money off of their children. I think it's really bad, and there needs to be laws in place, because that's child labor. That's it, you know, there's certain laws in place for child actors. Why should it be any different for, you know, social media? And I don't know if this is like coming from the fact that I've been an actor and I have had my likeness taken advantage of and exploited, and people have made tons of money off of me while paying me peanuts or not paying me at all. And that pisses you off when that happens. So I don't know if I'm coming at it from that experience, just being an actor, and yeah. Anyway, the sun has gone down and I am so exhausted. My brain is so fried. But yeah, we're gonna open an account for my son, and so you can leave it to where they get access to it when they're 18, or you can like give them a debit card or something as they're a teenager, and give them like a certain allowance, if you will, from their account. And I just figure, you know, that'd be a good way for him to have something, you know, to help him start out in life, whether he wants to go to school or get a car, or, you know, he shouldn't be working for free. You know what I mean? And I do think that vlogging eventually will require this kind of thing, so I just want to do right by my son and my children, and you know, if they're going to participate in something that is making our family money, then they deserve some of it. You know what I mean? So that's my plan, is to, one, not compromise his privacy and, you know, moments that really shouldn't be out there, and then two, pay him for participating. So yeah, it's a long ass answer. But that's how I feel about it, honestly. Okay, I didn't realize my phone has 5%, so I'm gonna plug it in here. But yes, that is the Q&A, the final countdown Q&A. I'm really excited. Anyway, until next time, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.